This week on World Stories, fighting over water in Kenya, a home for prisoners' children in China. But first, to France, where the presidential election campaign is entering the home stretch. Polls suggest the independent Emmanuel Macron is a strong contender against Front National's Marine Le Pen.
Attention, French Obama coming through. That's what it feels like when Emmanuel Macron enters the exhibition hall in Marseille. Ahcene Benkemouche is one of his biggest fans. He never used to be involved in politics, but when Macron left the socialists and founded his own movement, En Marche, Ahcene became a passionate supporter. I'm speechless. That's how happy I am. Just overwhelmed. Many people in France obviously feel the same way. The self-styled centrist is leading in the polls. But this French campaign cycle is turbulent, voter intentions are changing quickly, and shooting star Macron is young and relatively inexperienced. Ahcene thinks that's the candidate's strong point. He's on the streets non-stop to keep the buzz surrounding Macron going. At a market in downtown Marseille, he campaigns for his candidate. This neighborhood has a strong migratory background, and people like what he's saying. But even Macron comes with political baggage. These taxi drivers haven't forgotten that. As Minister of Economy in the socialist government, Macron sided with the transportation service Uber. Ahcene tries hard to win over the drivers, but they haven't forgiven Macron for helping the American competition. At the campaign event, Macron's supporters associate completely different values with their candidate. Renewal. Pragmatism. He stands for Europe. Emmanuel Macron has become a screen onto which French voters are projecting their dreams. Perhaps because he talks little about concrete proposals, but he tries to reach out to everyone. Wherever I go in Marseille, I see Moroccans, Tunisians, people from Mali. But what do I really see? I see people living in Marseille. What else do I see? I see French citizens. And it's looking likely that he will also become France's next president. If he does, he'll have to try not to crush all those hopes and expectations. They're huge, just as they were with Obama.
Drought in northern Kenya has caused much suffering for the people there. The situation has been made even more complex by an influx of refugees from neighboring countries.
Hunger has already ravaged his tiny body. Abdurrahim is fighting for his life in the Kakuma refugee camp in northern Kenya. The Somalian is 7 months old and suffering from pneumonia and diarrhea. So far this year, this hospital has treated more than 200 children with acute malnourishment. And the numbers are growing. But for some, help arrives too late.
Right now, because of the lack of food, we're getting a lot of cases of marasmus. Children are not getting enough food. So you find that they come in very wasted.
The Kakuma General Hospital is providing medical care to 180,000 refugees. Most are from South Sudan, fleeing conflict and drought in their home country. At the Kakuma camp, they can escape the fighting, but not the severe shortages of food and water. Members of Kenya's Turkana ethnic minority live right next to the camp. The semi-nomadic pastoralists have been hit hard by the drought. While the international community provides aid for the refugees, the Kenyan government is responsible for its own people.
We should get the same as the refugees. They come to our land and use our resources. We have the same right to receive aid.
In a new settlement away from the overcrowded camp, the United Nations is trying to help refugees and local peoples together. It's an attempt to promote integration and trade. But the local head of UN operations admits the project is struggling. It lacks adequate funding, and there is not enough supplies to go around.
What we observe is the host community blocking UNHCR vehicle going to the settlement, not to the camps, but to the settlement. And whenever we ask them, they said they need water.
The Kakuma hospital is also offering care to locals and new arrivals. Abdirahim is now getting life-saving oxygen and fluids. And for his mother, there's good news. Doctors have told her that her son will survive.
U.S. President Donald Trump has long promised to renegotiate the free trade agreement NAFTA. Mexican imports, he says, hurt U.S. jobs. But cities on both sides of the border could lose out if restrictions are imposed.
Every day, as many as 2,000 trucks cross the Veterans Bridge, connecting Brownsville with Matamoros. Materials, components, and finished products making their way from one side of the border to the other. NAFTA has boosted Brownsville's economy, says Jason Hilts, the city's head of economic development. He thinks it's wrong to denounce the agreement.
It should be revisited, it should be looked at, it should be strengthened for all players. See what provisions aren't working, what provisions need to be added because it's a new economy. Should it be thrown away? No.
Brownsville has done well out of the tax-free trade with Mexico and the cross-border tourism. But business is no longer booming here. The weak peso is to blame, a result of President Donald Trump's threats to Mexico. Some here call it the Trump effect.
Less people from Mexico coming over as it used to be. Before we had a lot of sales, but I want to say the sales have dropped dramatically.
This year?
Yeah, this year. And actually part of last year too as well.
Matamoros City on the other side of the border is one of Mexico's fastest growing municipalities. Tens of thousands of people work here in the 120 manufacturing operations, or maquiladoras, that produce electronics and car parts for the United States. The Maquiladoras Association's local president, Rolando Gonzalez Paron, says while he's not worried, others seem to be.
The only impact that we've seen is a lot of companies that are waiting the decision to come and invest in Mexico because they want to see what's going to be the end result of the negotiation of NAFTA. And we are not seeing companies that used to be coming more often. We don't see this right now.
Back in Texan Brownsville, Jason Hilts also has investors on his mind. He believes in his city's potential and knows how strongly connected it is to its Mexican twin.
If we didn't have those manufacturing plants in Matamoros, half of our investment in Brownsville in terms of warehousing space, industrial buildings, and some of our companies would not exist.
Business people here hope it'll only be a matter of time before Trump and his administration understand how truly interdependent the two sides of the border are.
Our last report takes us to China. The children of parents who end up in prison are often left to fend for themselves. We visited a village not far from Beijing where people are trying to change that.
It's pure luck that Zhao Li, that's not her real name, isn't sleeping in the streets. She'd been living in a small remote village with her father, a convict who'd fled jail. Then came the day 4 years ago when everything changed. I didn't know what was going on with my father. But suddenly police turned up in our village and arrested him. Then they put me in a car and drove away. A policeman had heard about Sun Village, a community for children of prisoners. The state-run orphanages refused to take them in, so if it weren't for this place, the kids would be on their own. They're uncomfortable discussing their parents, but once a year, these two visit their fathers. Often I don't understand what my dad is saying to me. I've already forgotten our dialect. Zhang Shuqin, a former journalist, founded this children's village 20 years ago after meeting inmates when she worked for the prison authorities' newspaper. They would often ask me to find out what had become of their children. They'd lost contact with them, and there was no one to take care of them. Sundays are busy at Sun Village. Visitors from Beijing arrive in tourist buses to donate clothing or to help out, while others come out of sheer curiosity to see how children of prisoners are faring. I wanted to show my daughter what it's like here, so she can see how these children live and learn how she wants to take part in society. When we come back, you'll work hard at school, right? Compared to these poor kids, you're doing really well, aren't you? Visitors to Sun Village are also treated to some entertainment. Grandma Zhang, as the children call the village director, has no qualms about showing visitors around. Through dance performances and contact with visitors, the children learn how to deal with their situation and be open about it. One of the visitors turned out to be an old acquaintance of Zhao Li's. They're so sweet. I love them. One student comes regularly to play music with the children. Music also helps Zhao Li gain self-confidence. That's something she'll need as an adult when she's likely to face unsettling questions about her family background.